I couldn't find my mute button. Sorry. Where is it on this device? Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Erica, can you do roll call?
Sure. President Christy Cromings is present. Nikki Cosio, I believe, is present. Nikki?
Sorry, I'm here. I'm just on mute. I'm driving. Okay.
It's okay. Kevin McIntosh is absent. Grant Leonard.
Hello, I'm here.
Here. And then Mr. Mark Bloom is absent today. John Bailey looks like is absent. Mr. Cesar Lara.
Present, I'm here.
We have Marty Ramirez.
Present.
And we have Paula Getzelman.
Here.
And Brett Sanders.
Here.
We have
Perfect. Can we pull the agenda up since I can't seem to get it up on my other iPad?
Ernesto will bring it right up for us.
Thank you. So we're going to do public comment first. Do we have anyone on as public that would like to make a comment that is not included on today's agenda? You
Doesn't
can raise
look
your
like we
hand on
have any
Zoom.
public at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So moving on to meeting topics, we've got the meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look those over?
Yes.
Does anyone have any comment, or would they like to make I can entertain a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Sure, Nikki Casio.
I'll tell you what, for this meeting, and since some people are in the car, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. There we go. Agency update. Patrick?
All right, well, I apologize for this meeting being sort of abbreviated today. We had originally planned to do a tour with the group of our organics facility, both current operations and discuss some of the plan things. But we still have a number of members that are not meeting in person and had some conflicts with getting down to Johnson. So I apologize for that. We'll try to schedule that at a later date when more of the members can make that tour. So I'll start with the most important update. So, we've talked about this, those of you, the newer members, as well as the ones that were on the original Citizens Advisory Group. As you know, we've been working very long and hard for many, many years to assist the city with their redevelopment plans for the Alisal Marketplace by trying to relocate our facility to a new facility somewhere. We have finally come to an agreement. I know we spoke about this at the last meeting with the city that, and with Republic Services, the city's franchise hauler, to relocate and cohabitate the Madison Lane transfer station with Republic Services. So the good news is the city has rescinded their notice to withdraw. So again, thank you very much to Christy in particular for her leadership on helping facilitate getting us back on onto an even keel with our relationship with the city, and looking forward to some new adventures and some joint efforts on a lot of the things that are in front of us, specifically around organics. So the city has rescinded their notice. We have executed a lease agreement with Republic Services for space at the Madison Lane transfer station. The authority will be relocating basically our AB 939 programs to Madison Lane. So all of our recycling center facility, all of the state funded or reimbursed diversion programs, as well as household hazardous waste. So we're not moving the whole transfer station. Republic is actually taking over that aspect of the community operation for Salinas. They will be providing collection and transfer of materials to the Johnson Canyon landfill. So they'll be doing the same thing we're doing at Sun Street, but Republic will be performing those functions. We'll be performing the front end functions, the programs that are already funded through our 8939 fees. So basically all the free services. Though nothing in life is free, when you come to the facility, you're not charged for those diversion services. So that will be the authority's role. And we've also signed a transportation agreement, and we will be performing all of the trucking and waste transport from Madison Lane to Johnson Canyon for municipal solid waste. So we'll continue to use the authority staff and fleet to provide services for those materials being transferred down to Johnson Canyon. So that is the structure of the relationship now that we have executed agreements with Republic. The transition period has started. Republic is now in the process of finishing engineering drawings and design. They'll be seeking bids fairly soon for a number of improvement projects at Madison Lane. They'll be building a new tearing down the old corporation yard, shop and maintenance facilities and offices, and building brand new facilities on the property. I believe they have some aesthetic and other upgrades planned for the existing buildings out there. They'll be repairing and modifying a current leased building that will become our household hazardous waste facility, as well as a number of other site improvements like asphalt and fencing and ingress and egress preparation for the facility. Plus, they'll be moving their scale house far into the property to provide for what we're expecting to be a fairly substantial increase in the amount of trucks and cars that need to be queued inside of the facility, not on the public roadway. So they'll be relocating their scale house as well. So the first two things up on their plan, our understanding at this point, is to do the improvements for the lease area for us, because as soon as that's done, then we can relocate. But concurrent with that, they have to relocate the scale house, because the day we shut down Sun Street, it's anticipated there'll be an increase in public traffic to that facility, and they need to be able to accommodate that traffic the day we move in. So those two projects are their time priority projects that are sort of first up. The other improvements are things that will be done probably over a longer period, a year or two, because they're more substantial. So right now, the tentative date is they will have those improvements done. And all of this is conditioned on weather, as we all know, when you start construction work at the beginning of winter. But if the weather permits, they're anticipating to have the work done in March. And at the moment they're finished with that work, we get a 60-day notice to relocate. And so during that 60-day window, we'll begin to set up our operations over there, and then we'll have a hard date where gates at Sun Street are closed and our operations are fully operational at Madison Lane. The only thing that won't start day one will be our transport operations, and that has to do with rates and budget approvals. That work will start July 1, and we'll probably use, if there's a month or two in between, we hope there will be, we'll be using our drivers and trucks for cleanup of Sun Street, getting materials out of here, relocating supplies and other things. We'll use that time period to take care of the initial cleanup and decommissioning Sun Street. So today, that's the plan. There's some efforts going on right now through John Phillips' office as the coordinator to do some outreach work with the community out there, get them prepared for the changes in the operations that'll happen. I know Mandy and her team are working on marketing and outreach information for the general public so that we can alert them to the change in the operation and when that's going to happen. Since we don't have a certain date, we're just saying spring of next year. And that's sort of where we're at with that part of the project. So it's all good news. But we do have a lot of work in front of us the next 6 months, getting prepared for that relocation of the facility. So I'm going to stop with that specific update and see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you so much, Patrick. Does anyone have a specific question they'd like to ask? And I can't see you, so just go ahead and start talking.
This is Paula, and my question is, Patrick, has there been any pushback at all from the neighborhood?
Not that I'm aware of. Republic is, they own the facility and are the overriding permit holder. I know they've had some communication with some members in the community. They have sort of an ad hoc community group, I guess, and one or two people that sort of act as spokespeople. And I know they've talked with them about it. But the plan here is to do a joint community meeting with Republic Services, ourselves, the county, both the permitting entities and John's office, as well as the city of Salinas, to just sort of talk about the improvements. I know Republic, we've asked that they speed up work on getting their what we call architectural drawings, which are sort of the plan views that, what will the facility look like when all the improvements are done. Hopefully they'll be trying to address some of the past concerns the public has had there about illegal access and just some general aesthetics. So we're just waiting for those documents to be created so that there's some good visuals for the public meetings. So I think they're going to happen in January probably, but I'm certain there'll be some discussions in the interim as they're notified of these meetings coming and wanting to know a little bit more about what the project's going to look like. But all in all, it should be an improvement to what's out there now. It's a very large facility. It has all the essential components, but it's very run down. So I think, one of the things the public's going to want out there is to see that operation just cleaned up a little bit so it looks more presentable in the community. And the other challenge out there right now is there is a significant parking problem on Madison Lane, primarily due to a couple of large businesses like UPS that for some reason aren't providing enough on-site parking for their employees. And as a result, there's a lot of illegal parking on Madison, and the county's going to start looking into, making it clear that these are no park zones, because the challenge is two large transfer trucks or a transfer truck and a garbage truck. In some instances may not even be able to pass each other because of people illegally parking. So the county's going to have to address that issue too before we really start to crank up the operations. So there's some things that have to happen in the community that it will hopefully improve this operation a bit.
Thank you, Patrick.
When I started looking at all this, I can't remember. Is Rossi Road involved in this particular project or no?
Well, it's not involved right now. Very likely it'll be brought up again and discussed. And I think that's going to be an issue for both the city and the county and Republic at some level to coordinate how and when that happens. But right now it's not, unfortunately, it's not part of the project. They were able to secure the permit extensions to allow this to happen. They've got all the permits, But we'll have to see how the community feels about starting this project without that roadway in place.
Yeah.
So Paula, this is Councilmember Croming. So Judge Phillips and I, Supervisor Phillips and I are, it is my district that bumps up against his district there. So we're pretty dedicated to moving forward with getting those plans going again and put in place. We were both pretty involved in the bypass initially. So, while this plan has gone in place, and I think it does need to move forward, we do realize that there are some road improvements that need to be done immediately. And then there's definitely a bypass plan that has to be put in place and funded, in some way in the future. That hasn't gone unnoticed, put it that way.
Well, it's good that it hasn't gone unnoticed, because I have a feeling that the neighborhood at some point in time, probably sooner than later, is going to be requesting some kind of modification or mitigation to some of the issues that are going to occur. So I'm glad to hear that it's at least on the table.
Yeah, absolutely is. And I think the taking care of the parking issue is going to be troublesome, but it also is going to help improve the neighborhood as well. So, if we can get those businesses to address their parking issue themselves and enforce the no parking, because it is no parking now, but enforce that those roads are going to be safer already.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I have a couple comments.
Caesar.
One is, this is good news. If you need help with UPS, in a previous life, I represented the UPS drivers through my union and represented the drivers directly. It's a management issue where the people that show up at 5 o'clock in the morning to load leave when the drivers get there. So the drivers need to move their cars into the lot before they leave out on their routes. I think that's just a management issue that I'm pretty sure could get worked out. I'll give the union the heads up so they could work with the members, because nobody wants their cars towed if they don't have to. And then the second, to a comment that I made at the last meeting that I'll work with Councilmember Cromies, is signage to the new location. Making sure that we have that. And I don't know if they've talked to the city or it's kind of on the city, because it'll be on city streets, but some kind of signage in the spring when that happens. Most likely permanent signs, metal permanent signs, not just a banner at the gate kind of thing. I think signs to the location would be helpful. And then the second, more on the city and working with Councilwoman again on budget to increase staffing, because there's probably going to be illegal dumping, because that's just going to happen for a while until people get used to the new site. So just want to throw that out there.
Well, and Caesar, addressing that issue, that's something that you guys can help us with too, because, as a city representative, we do have some council members that are very against cleanup, and they're not understanding that cleanup includes illegal dumping. So we need to get that word out there to people that, when we say cleanup, we're not just talking about homeless encampments. We're actually talking about illegal dumping in the city, and that we need to keep funding that and picking it up. So any help, Caesar, you can give me on that front, I would really appreciate it, because we've drastically reduced that funding and we need to get it back, because we are going to have some, at least for a short term and hopefully not a long term, we are going to have an issue and need to address it.
Yeah, to be realistic, it'll probably be a problem for a couple of years. It's always a problem, no matter what, even in the current environment, but it's probably going to be a higher problem, at least for the next couple of years, as people, I went there last year and why is it not there anymore, kind of, things in their mind are going to happen.
Yeah, and I suppose specifically in that area, it's a cul-de-sac. I bet people come and dump right there, and we're going to have, it's going to be an additional spot that the city is going to have to clean up.
I agree.
Good news is we have surveillance cameras there, so hopefully if people are legally dumping, we can provide good information to city PD for response also.
Yeah.
So
And some
we'll-
signage saying they're being videotaped may
Yeah.
stop that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll help, but they'll just find another dark cul-de-sac without.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and the other challenge here really is the rates are going to be substantially higher. This is a private merchant facility. There's no way to control what their rate setting is. Their rates are consistent with other privately run transfer stations in the Bay Area, but they're definitely much higher than the authority's rates. So there will be some rate shock when people come. We will be letting people know that they can still use Johnson Canyon as a fallback if they're really concerned about the higher rates. But our preference is to try to keep everybody coming to that facility, and it will take some time for the public to get accustomed to the rate structure that will be at Madison Lane, because it will be much different than the authority's Sun Street facility.
Yeah.
So,
Patrick, I kind of, sorry, I just kind of see that. I see that twofold. I think the bigger truckloads of, people that are cleaning out their whole garages, we're going to want to get them driving down to Johnson Canyon, and the people that have that, just want to throw away a small stuff, we want to get those over to Madison Lane. So I think we're kind of splitting the baby, here with this facility.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that was
that's
going to be
what
I'm sorry.
will happen.
Go ahead, Patrick.
No, I'm just saying, I
Oh,
think
there
that's
you
what
go.
will happen, but I think initially, we're going to have a little bit of chaos we're going to have to work through until the customers get accustomed to, understanding that they can save a lot of money if they go down to Johnson. If they have big loads, if they have smaller loads, the cost benefit may not be worth their extra driving.
Yeah. Brett,
Right.
you had something to say?
Yeah, a company basically what we're saying is this is a public-private partnership. I mean, if you want to call it that, and a company like Republic is not going to do anything out of the goodness of their heart, I would assume. Is there any sort of schedule or any sort of contract negotiation saying, hey, we turned this over to you under duress, but, can you take it easy on the rates on some sort of scaled schedule, or did that not enter into the conversation, Patrick?
Well, that was in the conversation. I know it was in the conversation with the city staff during the franchise negotiation. So the city's, approved. This is all sort of a bundled package, I guess, is the best way to put this. The city, encouraged Republic to come to the table and to work with us on a joint use facility, and they also received an extension on their franchise agreement and some additional service changes. So all that was on the table. Primarily, though, that was being negotiated between the city and Republic. The authority wasn't part of those discussions, but we, made it real clear with Republic that we want to make sure we're serving the public's best interest.
Exactly.
And that anything they can do to control the rates would be helpful, but at the end of the day, the rates are still substantially higher, particularly for larger loads. And I think, as Christy said, we're going to probably see those larger loads of material going down to Johnson because it's worth their while. And the smaller stuff and all the recycling services, the free services, which we want them to take advantage of, those will continue to primarily go to Madison. So I think I agree that's sort of how it will play out over the next year or so. Yeah.
Erica, can you get rid of the agenda so we can see each other? There we go. So I think it's important for us to make sure that we have good marketing materials so that they know that they have that option of going down to Johnson and still getting those types of rates. I think that's really important. I'm not here to make Republic rich, right? We're here to serve the community. So if that's the best choice for them, we need to make sure that they know that that's the best choice for them. And also making sure that they know that all those free services they can still get right here in the city. And, and a lot of people don't know about those, they don't know about the mattress or they have no idea. And that's why we get a lot of I happen to have a mattress and box springs in my parking lot at my office right now that I don't know what I'm going to do with. so, somebody moved out of the apartment next door, they threw it over the fence. So, we've got to make sure that we get it out to the public. Marketing is a big deal to make sure during this transition that everyone knows the services that we're providing. And by all means, that Johnson Canyon is still there and still providing the greatest service.
Yep. Well heard. That is exactly what we're working on right now, is to try to create a marketing message that's clear. But the other side of it is people want to know when you're doing it, and we can't, it's the actual relocation date is completely out of our hands.
I got you, Grant.
Yeah. So that's the message is generic, that sometime we're just basically saying spring is when we're
sometime in spring, early to late spring, where, this is coming. Make sure you know all this. Grant, you had something to say?
Yeah, just a few questions. Thank you. Patrick, you said the change in rates will be significant. Do we know exact numbers or?
Yes. So,
and maybe, you could just email that out to us so we have it if you don't want to.
I have it on my board, on my whiteboard.
Well, basically, when we have two rates for, we'll use a pickup as a standard, as our standard, right? That's what most of the stuff comes in. So we have a pickup truck, a full size bed, 6 foot plus 6.5 foot bed. If that bed is filled up to the top of the bed, level with the top of the bed, that's what we call anything that full or less is called a minimum charge. It's $17. Republic's minimum charge will be $25. So that's a bit of an increase. However, our rate goes to $34 if it's filled above the bed. So we just basically have two rates, bed level and below, or above the bed level, and you pay $34. So it's basically half a ton. That's our standards, a half ton for a pickup filled to the gills. Their rate, though, can go up to as high as 70. Remind me, Mandy, is it 70?
78 for a full pickup load.
For a full pickup load. So there's their rates can be at the high end can be 100% of our rate.
And correct me, they have like 4 different types of rates, right? It's 4.
Well, they're by the cubic yard.
They do it by the cubic yard, whereas we usually do it by pounds and then by half ton or ton. Usually it's tons. So for Republic, their half a cubic yard is $25. Basically 1 cubic yard is $39. 1.6 cubic yards, which is like like 2/3 of a pickup truck, is $58. And then a full pickup truck, which they consider 2.2 cubic yards, is $78. Our fee for all of those is $17. So it's a substantial increase.
Do any city or county residents get 1 or 2 free drop-offs per year, or does that not happen in Monterey County?
Yes, the city does.
Okay.
So there, in all the franchise agreements for all of our jurisdictions throughout the entire county, there are free cleanup days where you can bring in extra trash or a mattress or e-waste or anything like that. In Salinas, they have cleanup events for each city council district throughout the entire year. And then they also have a citywide cleanup, which is actually next weekend, I believe. And then all the South County cities have 2 cleanups a year. There is bulky waste collection, free bulky
Sure.
waste collection at the curb. There's a lot of,
So Mandy, what I'm
extras.
asking is based on your address, do you get one free, can you take a load of stuff to the dump for free once a year? No.
landfill.
Sorry. Oh,
Mhm.
transfer station.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brett. No, there is no free landfill vouchers. We've talked
Okay.
about that. I was just in a legal dumping meeting today and someone
Yeah.
suggested that. And it's something that we have considered and talked about, but anytime at any of our facilities that we offer anything free, it gets very confusing for the public as to what's offered for free and
Yeah.
when it's offered for free. And it actually ends up being way more
And
confusing
as
for our
Patrick said,
staff.
right, as Patrick said, it's not free. It's
It
just
is
someone
not.
different pays for it. Right.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's Republic's justification for, potentially 100% higher than the district's charge? I mean, do they give a breakdown of why it's more expensive, or?
They got to make a profit, man.
Yeah.
They are for profit.
They
Yeah.
are for profit. We are, a public service agency. We don't make a profit. So, and yeah, it's just the difference. And their rates aren't out of line with other, what we call merchant facilities that are run by private entities, right? Merchant meaning it's a standalone profit center, right, for the company. They're not out of line. I mean, that's pretty close to what we're seeing from other garbage companies that are running transfer stations in the Bay Area. So,
Well, Waste Management used to own and operate Madison Lane, and their rates were always significantly higher. And that was also a merchant facility, right? Owned by a private business. So Patrick's right. It's not necessarily out of line with other facilities that are owned by private entities, but it's a change for us in this community because that's not what our community members are used to. So.
yeah.
So is there a way to have the district maintain its fees for people coming in, or just by being in the same facility, we need to have Republic's rates?
We had that discussion.
That plane that ship has sailed.
Yeah, we had that discussion many times with them. We even asked if they would sell us one parcel. There's 3 parcels at Madison. And it just so happens that one parcel encompasses the area where the public goes, and it encompasses the lease space we're going to be in. And we said, why don't just give us this parcel, right? We'll buy it and we'll run all the public operations. And it's, from a corporate perspective, they just had no interest in that. That's just their policy. They own and operate their own facilities, and they set rates, and there was no flexibility in that discussion.
Okay.
The city of Salinas is still having discussions with them about different options of phasing in rates, different things to just try to make it easier on constituents as we roll this out. So those discussions are still happening. All the council members are upset about the rates. So, it is still going on. Whether that will come to any kind of fruition, I don't know, but those discussions are still happening.
Okay. So I guess, how do I put this? For the average person, it's about convenience and cost. So is this location a real benefit to the average person coming in? Is it a break even? Is it not a plus for the average consumer? How would we approach it that way?
So Grant, from my point of view, I cleaned out my garage and, I threw, realistically, my garage is pretty full right now, but if I cleaned out my garage, I'm going to have a few things that need to go to the dump. And a couple of them are going to be things that are going to be taken by us anyway for free. And then some of them are things that are going to need to be thrown away. And the $25 versus the $17 isn't going to make a big difference for the convenience. It's when somebody is moving and they're going to have a big truckload of stuff, or they do it for a living, landscapers, people like that. And they're going to find their workaround anyway. And that's where I'm really pushing that we need to make sure that we have information about Johnson Canyon readily available, so that those people that do that for a living, who would rather drive to Johnson Canyon and dump, and it's worth it for them. We don't want to send them to Marina. We want to send them to Johnson Canyon.
Mandy, I know you have a very analytical mind, and I know you probably have the statistics memorized, but the average person in the city of Salinas or in Monterey County, how many times do they use a transfer station per year? Is it less than one?
Well, I don't have the exact stats, but thank you for thinking that I might have those. So I think Cesar Zuniga, who's our operations assistant general manager, he gave a report to our board a couple months ago, and Sun Street basically services City of Salinas residents. It's like 99% of our customers come from Salinas. Right. I don't know how many times they come, because if they're cash customers, it's hard to count how many repeat customers we have. Right. I know we have a lot of regulars, but I think last year our trip count was up to 100,000 customers we served last year, which is 140,000 customers we served at Sun Street.
Well, I live in the city of Salinas. I have 3 kids. So once in a while, there's too much garbage, too much everything.
It's the kids' fault.
It's the kids' fault. It's the kids' fault. I actually have a truckload of garden stuff in my truck right now. But I go 3 times a year, maybe once a quarter. There's always times when garbage doesn't get taken out or whatever, and I have to go. I pay $17. I rarely pay more than that because I don't take that many stuff.
But that's Cesar, that's like way more than your average person, I would think. I'm just like, Paula, how many times did you go to the transfer station this year?
Paula, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Because we live out in the country and we burn so much. Yeah. We have less trash than a lot of people. And Paul goes fairly often, but he will take, just a small little load often, because he happens to be in Salinas. I would imagine probably total of 3 truckloads a year.
And the reason that I asked this question is really sort of to answer Grant, because I don't personally feel like a rate increase is going to affect somebody massively if they only go once or twice a year. If somebody is a commercial user, then they're the ones who are going to bear the brunt of this, but that's a cost of doing business. Right. And
that's going to be passed on to the consumer.
They're going to pass that number on to their customers.
My landscaping bill is going to go up.
Absolutely.
Can I ask?
My husband does my landscaping, but
he's still going to charge you.
He's going to charge me.
For instance, all the people that live out here probably go to the Halone Road transfer station more than they do any place else. What will be the difference to the rate from taking stuff to the transfer station versus in the future versus what they're paying now?
No change. The rate, the transfer station and landfill are the same.
So that will remain the same.
This decision primarily affects City of Salinas ratepayers, and to some degree, a small number of county ratepayers that use that facility in the surrounding areas around Salinas. But for the remainder of South Valley cities and Southern County, there won't be any impact. Now, I say that, I qualify that comment. And it's only because what's going to happen is customers are now going to have three choices. They're actually the same three choices they had before, only a different transfer station. So they can go to Madison Lane. We're going to encourage them to go to Johnson Canyon if they have rate concerns. That will at least make that, not necessarily encourage them, but make that an option clear to them so they can make that choice. And then the third option, unfortunately, is the one we don't want to talk about, and that's they'll do something inappropriate. They'll either illegally dump or they'll steal service, meaning they'll go fill up somebody's commercial bin in the middle of the night if they're have a conscience about not putting it on the ground. Hopefully that won't happen a lot, or at least if it does, it'll, through education and enforcement, we can pare that down in a short period of time. But for the authority, the biggest risk is if some of those customers choose to go to Marina, that's lost revenue. And Sun Street is a $2.5 million line of business for the authority. So it's not, it's not cheap. And based on the rate analysis we've done, obviously not running Sun Street, we have some savings, right? That gives us some bandwidth to absorb revenue reductions. But if those revenue reductions are too much, then it comes back to having to go on the backs of the rest of the ratepayers. So the good news, because we have savings and because we're making this projection that we're not going to lose more than 25 to 40% of our revenue. Again, that's revenue that would go to another facility, either in Santa Cruz County or go to Marina. That we're actually planning to lower our tipping fee. That's part of the arrangement. So our tipping fee is actually going to go down from $68.50 to $64.75. So that provides some benefit. And again, because of the savings for closing Sun Street, we can absorb some loss in that $2.5 million line of business. But if it's too significant, then we may have to go back and raise those rates again in the following fiscal year.
How does the rates at Marina compare to Republic's?
Their self-haul rates are a little bit higher than ours. They're like $20 for a minimum charge. We're $17. Their current tipping fee is $65 a ton. Ours will, strangely enough, be $64.75. So we'll be 5 cents a ton, but 25 cents a ton is not going to change anybody's mind. They're still going to go to the most convenient. So we know some of that self-haul will go to Monterey Regional. And as long as it's not excessive, everything will balance out. But this is a very unique transition that I've never found an equivalent anywhere out there. So our crystal ball is, I would say it's not black, but it's extremely cloudy. And we just can't predict it. So we think we've given ourselves some buffer in the budget preparation to, have this work and not create any hardships for the rest of the members. But we'll just have to see how that transition goes. And again, it's all going to be about education and making sure we let people know what their options are, so they don't feel that this is their only choice. So
Patrick, speaking of Sun Street, any thoughts on what would happen to that location after the transfer, or has that not been?
Well, we're not gonna rush out to sell it or repurpose it for something. We're gonna spend some time looking at it. But I think the biggest thing for us is we have a warehouse there, and it's got a lot of stuff in it. We don't have a place to put that right away. So we're going to continue to use it for storage and warehousing of supplies and materials for a while. We do need to clean it up. There's things that have to be decommissioned on the property. There's a lot of maintenance and heavy equipment materials and parts there that have to be moved down to Johnson so we can continue to service our fleet, because we're going to have all of our fleet services now going to get concentrated at Johnson. Right now we do a lot of it at Johnson, but we still do some at Sun Street. So there's some transitional stuff just with the property that we're going to have to work on. That's probably going to take us a year or two to get that property in shape to either could be a moneymaker. We could find a lease use for it, or someone could make an offer we can't refuse, and we'll have it ready for sale. So we've just sort of left the door open on what we do with the property. But in the short term, we've got work to do on it, and it's going to take a while. So again, it's probably a year or two out before we consider what we're going to do with it. That'll take a lot of board input too, because there may be some opportunities for us.
And, the city may find some developer that wants to come in and, do something fantastic on all of that stuff. And then again, it may not happen for years. So.
Well, I know I don't see Brett on. I think Brett dropped off, but I was going to say, our storage, our warehouse is actually an old cold, insulated cold facility. Great location for a cannabis, a vertical cannabis grow facility. 19,000 square feet with a lot clear span, fully insulated, and a lot of electrical service there because it used to be a packing house. So there's a lease opportunity or a purchase, but I don't know if long range, if the city really wants to put a cannabis there, because I think your long range plans are a little more of a live work connector community than commercial operations. But that's
right in the middle of the general plan. We'll see how that works itself out, right?
Yep.
And it's also already part of the LSL vibrancy plan too, that we want to redevelop that area.
Yep.
Patrick, do we know, will Hope Services still be providing work for their employees at a new location, or?
We are talking with them right now, actually, about bringing them down to Johnson Canyon. So we're about to, because of the pandemic, we had a major project that was delayed about a year and a half, and that was our organics and C&D, or construction demolition sorting line. And so unfortunately, when we bought it from a company in Ireland, and it was delivered. And right after it was delivered, we started quarantines across the world for COVID. So they weren't able to actually travel to the US and do the installation until just a few weeks ago. So we're talking with Hope Services about running a crew and helping us down at that facility as an alternative. I know Waste is going to need to really upscale their litter abatement in the community over what they do today. So we've encouraged them to consider reaching out to them on doing the Bronda Community Litter Program as well. So we're hopeful that we're going to keep them employed. We'd like to keep them employed. We also have access and use Salinas Valley Vocational Services out of Soledad, which provides the same type of training and job support for developmentally disabled adults. So they're also a possible client that could help us with some of the things like sorting construction debris on a sorting line, as well as doing litter abatement at Johnson and or at Madison Lane. So we're hopeful that they will stay as part of the system.
Yeah, I hope so too. One final question. You mentioned that the city has officially rescinded its notice to withdraw, which is great news. Super excited to hear that. I'm wondering which agenda that was on. I'd like to take a quick look at the report or
That was on last month's agenda, October.
Okay.
It was both on the October executive committee agenda and the board agenda.
Any other questions? Any other reports?
Just one other quick briefing, and that is just letting you all know about some of the projects we've been working on. Most of you have probably heard about most of these, but just a quick update on them. So Global Organics Energy, our company you've heard us talk about off and on, that has a very elaborate technology on paper, has informed us that it looks like they've finally secured all their financing for a pilot facility. Now, this is not This is not a permanent operation. It's something that the authority agreed to as a first step with them to host a pilot facility at Johnson Canyon where they can test their technology at a commercial scale. Right now, we have a pilot autoclave facility up at Crazy Horse that's hasn't been in operation for a while, and this is the scale up, which is the first step for them to secure long-term financing for a full-scale facility. So that's good news. We're hoping they'll be able to move that project forward next year. And because that project solves our SB 13A3 problems all in one basket if it actually happens. And the good news is we're seeing a couple other facilities not too dissimilar from theirs that are all online now. Weyerhaeuser has a facility doing a very similar type of separation process for paper recovery. And there's another facility in Ireland, in Limerick, that is doing the same thing. So good news is the technology is starting to catch on and is in active commercial use now. So we're excited to see them interested in trying to move that commercial demonstration plant forward, which would be a 12 to 18 month project. The other aspect, other thing we're working on, we've been approached by our landfill gas vendor, Amoresco, who takes our landfill gas and makes electricity, sells it onto the grid. And we've asked them to do something with the excess gas because the contract says when you have enough gas to put another generator in, what they call an increment, another 1.5 megawatts of power, they have 36 months to do that. We've given them that notice and information. Unfortunately, the markets don't support that type of project any longer because of the low price of natural gas. But there are other things they can do. So what they've done is reached out to another company in the Central Valley that is doing digestion projects, specifically one that's going on in the city of Turlock. And they're working on a partnership where they'll take our excess landfill gas and gas, again, methane coming off of a digester that is being fed primarily by agricultural culls. They've actually been talking with Taylor Farms, some of the other big processors that are very interested in having a local outlet that creates something sustainable from their waste products because of the difficulties and costs of continuing to transport that material out to the Central Valley for cattle feed. That is becoming, I guess, less attractive. And so there's some interest in sort of a joint project. So there's a partnership that's brewing in the background. They're starting to look at the economics, the cost, all the upfront things to try to see whether this is a viable project. So no one's moving forward with it. We've only committed that we would provide space if they can put this together and that we would be a supporting partner. They could also take some of our organics as well. So that's very exciting. They are making some progress. They're starting to do some pre-permit work and looking at construction costs, trying to pencil out the economics on it. So hopefully there'll be more to come on that probably this spring. And then finally, we have another proposal that was made to us, again, a consortium of a company and a couple of agricultural tarp pullers. And it's really looking at how to manage, in particular, the dirty film plastics coming off of the berry operations. Drip tape is recyclable, and I think that we had actually had a group meeting with a lot of stakeholders that was sponsored by the Farm Bureau this week. Very interesting discussion with a lot of people talking about what can and can't be recycled effectively. Drip tape can be recycled, but what can't be, and it's been the long-standing challenge, is the dirty mulch plastic they use specifically in berry operations. It's just got so much contamination. So this technology basically can take that plastic and convert it into transportation fuels. So take the plastic and take it back to its original form, which are petroleum products like gasoline, diesel, and kerosene. And so the company, again, approached us. They're looking at putting in a small pilot plant for proof of, not necessarily proof of concept, because they already have an operating facility in Mexico. But in California, you need to have a pilot scale plant running first before you can really scale up to something large. So they have requested some space at our old Crazy Horse landfill to run a pilot facility. And again, that work's going on right now in the background. Primarily, we're, again, as we have been for a lot of technologies, interested in being the host, just to start moving these things forward. And then hopefully, if they're successful, then larger scale facilities can be constructed somewhere to provide permanent services. So those are some of the sort of fun things we're doing in the background right now, and be good to see those coming forward, because they're all essential and very necessary services that we know there's a demand for.
Wow, those are some good ones. Does anyone have any questions about those or comments? No?
It's wonderful to hear that we're forming partnerships and figuring out what to do with some of these things that have heretofore been, a little bit of a conundrum in how to deal with them. And we're finding ways to actually recycle or break them down, or whatever the option is. Everything just seems to be speeding up, and that's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see technology finally starting to hit the ground and giving us options for dealing with stuff that historically has been ag. I can only tell you, ag plastics. I mean, 35 years I've been dealing with ag plastics, and I've seen so many companies come and go that thought they could do it, and it's just never been successful. There are certain ones that you can recycle, but when you get to the ones that are really essential in ag, like the mulches you see in the berry crops, those have no one has been successful at that yet. It's just and it's primarily because of dirt.
Yeah.
So
and it's so much waste. Waste.
It's hard to deal with. It's actually operationally difficult for landfills. It gets wrapped up in your tracks, and it gets wrapped up in your bearings and seals, and it just does a lot of damage and creates a lot of downtime when we have to deal with that stuff. So we're happy to see it go someplace, hopefully go someplace else where it can have benefit. And our understanding with the company is, we want to be off takers of the fuel, right? In other words, if you're going to make diesel or gasoline, we want that at a discount. Part of our fares, we want that at a discount rate, because it's actually exceeds all.
Make it and then give it back to us, right?
Well, the beauty is that when you make plastics, you've already taken all of the contaminants out of the oil, right? You've purified the hydrocarbons to create plastics. So you actually have a very pure source that creates a very pure fuel without contaminants. It's what we're seeing from their test results is it far exceeds the ASTM standards for gasoline and diesel that you get at the pump, because someone's already done that work when they were creating the resins for the plastics. Easy to take it back to a fuel without burning, without emissions, and just really turn it back to what it was. So yeah, we want to be the benefactor too of supporting them. So
and speaking of the dairy industry, anything about anybody doing anything with the clamshells that are so prevalent when you're dealing with all kinds of berries?
Well, I know Monterey Regional at their MRF has been able to deal with a lot of those. I know Mandy may know a little more about that than myself, but I know they've been working on trying to isolate those. Like, there's a name for them, the type of forming they use. It creates some different challenges. But Mandy, have you heard anything? I know the district's trying to focus on those.
Yeah, they were. I haven't heard any other updates except for that they weren't taking the black, part of the clamshell. They didn't have, like, if you buy one of those wonderful roasted chickens at Costco or the grocery store, the black bottom of those is not, they weren't able to take those and recycle those anymore. But yeah, the clamshells, most of the clamshells, unfortunately, that I've personally come into contact with, like the to-go containers, are all polystyrene and not recyclable anyway. It's I do know that I feel like this the Eneria, or is that their name, Patrick? The Anera, sorry, they changed their name. So Anera had said at one point that their system could also take some of those problem plastics, that they would be willing to take the clamshells and other items that, we couldn't find an actual recycling market for. So that would be pretty amazing if that actually comes to fruition. So.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Does anyone else have any other comments? Well, it was nice to see all of you again. John, Caesar, Nikki, I know you're there somewhere. I can't see your face, Paula. With that said, if there's nothing else, then we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Yeah, and just before you go, so the next meeting, we will hopefully be focusing on getting your input on the marketing work related to the
Wonderful.
transfer. So we'll have some
Wonderful.
to bring to you and get your feedback.
And right now, I believe our next meeting is scheduled in January because of the holidays. So November and December, we won't have any meetings. But if something comes up, we'll go ahead and send out a special meeting request.
Perfect. Thank you,
Right.
Erica.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Happy holidays then.
Happy holidays.
Exactly.